All right, welcome back to our explainer series on dental anomalies. Now, in our last couple of parts, we talked all about issues with tooth number, size, and shape. But today, in part 3, we're diving into what happens when the very building blocks of our teeth fail. And let me tell you, this leads to some truly fascinating structural defects. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with a quick intro. Then we'll look at defects in that outer enamel shield. After that, we'll move deeper into the dentin core, and we'll wrap up by looking at some of the rarest and, honestly, most incredible conditions you'll probably ever see. Okay, let's set the stage a little. I want you to think about a tooth being built kind of like a skyscraper. It's this super complex, multi-stage process. But just like with a skyscraper, if anything disturbs the construction, well, the final structure can end up with some pretty significant flaws.
And that is the big question for today, really. We're going to explore what happens when the genetic blueprints themselves have a mistake, or when the construction site, the developing jaw, gets disrupted by something from the outside world.
So let's start from the outside and work our way in. We're beginning with the tooth's hardest substance, its main line of defense, the enamel.
The general term for these defects is enamel hypoplasia. Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that this is not decay. This is a structural problem that happens way back when the enamel is first being built by these specialized cells called ameloblasts. You can think of them as little enamel factories. And if those cellular factories get disturbed, the final product definitely pays the price.
And these disturbances, they basically come from two main sources. On one side, you got hereditary causes, meaning the problem is literally written into your genes. And on the other side, you have environmental factors, where something external comes along and messes up the process.
So let's start with that hereditary path. This is called amelogenesis imperfecta. It's a group of genetic disorders where the instructions for building enamel are just wrong from the get-go, and that leads to problems everywhere.
And you can really see just how different this condition can look. We see teeth that are pitted, they're rough, they're discolored. In the really severe cases, the enamel is so thin it almost looks like it's completely missing, leaving the teeth exposed and super vulnerable to damage, rapid wear, and of course, decay.
This comparison is so telling. If you look at the X-ray, that enamel layer should be a really bright, dense white line. But here, you can see it's either incredibly thin or it has the same cloudy look as the dentin underneath it, making it almost invisible.
To get a better handle on this, scientists classify these defects based on when the failure happens. Think of it like building a brick wall. Did you fail to lay down the protein framework, the mortar? That's hypoplastic. Or did you fail to properly mineralize that framework with calcium, the bricks? That's hypocalcification. Or maybe did you fail to let the final structure mature so it was actually strong? That's hypomaturation. Each type of failure creates a totally different result.
Okay, so that's what happens when the genetic blueprint itself is flawed. But what if the blueprint is perfect, and it's the construction environment that gets all messed up?
Well, that brings us to focal enamel hypoplasia, which is often called a Turner's tooth. Now, unlike the genetic form that affects all the teeth, this is a localized problem. It usually happens when an infection or some kind of injury to a baby tooth actually damages the permanent tooth bud that's developing right underneath it.
And this flowchart here shows that direct cause and effect relationship perfectly. A seemingly minor issue with a baby tooth, like a bit of trauma or an infection, can leave a permanent mark because all that inflammation directly messes with those super sensitive ameloblast cells working on the adult tooth just below.
So what does it look like?
Well, a Turner's tooth can show up as anything from a small patch of white or brownish discoloration to a more severe, clearly pitted area on the tooth surface. It's basically a scar marking the spot where development got interrupted.
All right, so we've covered the outer shield. Now let's move a little deeper inside the tooth and take a look at defects in the dentin. That's the main structural part that's right under the enamel. So here we have another hereditary condition, but this time it's called dentinogenesis imperfecta. In this case, the faulty gene affects how the dentin is formed, and it gives the teeth this very unique, translucent or opalescent look, often in these beautiful shades of blue-gray or amber. The X-ray tells a really clear story here. You see how the crowns have that distinct bulbous or bell shape? The roots are often short and thin. And maybe the most striking thing is that the pulp chambers and root canals, which should be these dark, hollow spaces, are almost completely filled in with bad dentin. But there's a rare version of this condition that completely flips the script. Instead of the pulp chamber being filled with too much dentin, there's way too little, which leads to this incredible condition known as shell teeth.
Just look at this X-ray. It's amazing. The enamel is actually normal, but that dentin layer is paper thin. It makes the pulp chambers look absolutely enormous. The teeth literally become these fragile, hollow shells, which is, you guessed it, exactly where they get their name.
Okay, for our last section, we're really venturing into the truly rare and unusual. These are two conditions that are not only uncommon, but also have these incredibly striking appearances, and some equally evocative names. First up, there's a type of dentin dysplasia, another genetic defect. This disorder just devastates root development, making the teeth unstable and likely to be lost early. It's really no surprise it's earned the nickname rootless teeth.
And finally, we have a condition that isn't hereditary and usually only affects one little section of the mouth, regional odontodysplasia. On an X-ray, its appearance is so shocking it's earned what is maybe the most memorable name of all, ghost teeth.
And this X-ray shows you exactly why they're called that. I mean, look at them. The affected teeth are so poorly mineralized, we're talking paper-thin enamel and dentin, that they barely even show up. They look faint, fuzzy, almost transparent, like little ghosts of teeth.
You know, from genetic misprints that affect every single tooth to these localized environmental disruptions that just mar one, these anomalies really reveal just how complex and frankly how fragile the process of tooth development is. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets about our biology are just waiting to be discovered?